I had bad signal. Took like a whole last minute to get in here.
Oh, that's okay. Adrian, how are you doing today?
It's it's been too hot. I've had a headache all day.
I have too. I had to take Tylenol. My head is hurting all day. I think, what someone said there's a fire out on the western slope and it's really affecting the air quality here. So I'm
I
blaming it
wonder,
on that.
I wonder if it's that because I just had this headache and my eyes have just been dry. I don't know.
I hear you. I just want to curl up and go to bed.
Right.
All right. But we're going to get through this because tonight is the second night of spreadsheets. So we'll wrap up tonight. And tonight I'm going to focus on showing you how you can take the data that you had in a spreadsheet and make it into a chart. It could be a bar chart or a pie chart. So we're going to look at some charting and all the things you can do with charts. And then we'll get into some formatting in spreadsheets and creating tables in spreadsheets. So let me go ahead and share my screen. And I'm going to flip over to our class. A couple of things I noticed going through the chat last night. I believe someone was asking where to find the videos. So you see in Moodle, I have put a recording of every session that we have out there in Moodle. So this is the one from last night. And so I try to get those up by noon the following day. So tonight we're on spreadsheets. And if you look at our agenda for tonight, where are we? Here we are. Discuss spreadsheets. So then tonight you're going to complete lesson 5, which is spreadsheets part 2. You're doing the video training and the exercise labs in geometrics, and then do the Excel cumulative exercise, which you'll find in Moodle. Now, Kayla was asking me a few minutes before the class began, do you have to hand in your homework? Is homework considered late? And the answer is no. I only put this homework out there just to keep you progressing. Some people might be a day or two behind. That is perfectly okay. I would rather have you fully grasp one concept before you move on to another concept. There is no collecting of homework. I don't check to make sure you completed homework. The proof will be when you take the exam, how well you do on the exam. And on Thursday, I'll talk about the next steps with getting prepared for the exam. All right, so first let me open our PowerPoint presentation. You guys can always open this PowerPoint yourself. And I'm going to go down, whoops. Something happened, Kayla. It said, can you annotate? And hold on, let me see if I can still, yeah, I think I can still get down there. So here we are in day 5, lesson spreadsheets part 2, and we're going to start talking about charts. One of the powerful things about Excel is you can take numbered data and put it into pictures. As you know, most people like to view pictures. As they say, a picture is worth 1,000 words or 1,000 numbers. People visualize numbers much easier than scanning through a whole list of numbers. So the first thing we're going to focus on is how to create charts from your Excel data. Charts are handled on the Insert tab. There are many different chart types that you can choose from. We're going to look at two different ones tonight. You always want to make sure that your chart has a title that explains the data. Notice this chart's title is chart title, not a very meaningful title. We would want to change that. You can manipulate the charts as objects in your worksheet. You can move them around. You can move them to their own worksheet. You can also add what are called chart elements to your worksheet. Things like, see how there's little numbers above each one of these columns? That's a chart element called a data label. So let me flip over and open up our Excel file for tonight. So this is our Excel file for tonight, and I want to make a chart of this data. So I'm going to select the range of cells that I want to include in my chart. I'm going to include from A7 to F15. And remember, I use the shift method to click that continuous range of cells. Once I've selected that range of cells, I'm going to go to the Insert tab, and you see the Charts group in the middle of that tab, and you see little pictures of all different kinds of charts that you can do. We're going to pick this first one, and we're going to click the drop down, and I'm going to do a 2D clustered column chart, and you see what my chart looks like. Once I have this chart, I may move this chart around by getting that four-headed arrow and dragging the chart to a different location on my worksheet so that I can see both the chart and the data at the same time. You can also size the chart just like you sized a picture by dragging. When you get that diagonal arrow, you can make the chart smaller or larger by dragging that arrow. Now, let's say that I wanted to add a title to this chart. I don't want it to have this generic or this default title that just says chart title. I'm going to select the title, and up in the formula bar, I'm going to type the title that I want. Expenses for 2015 through 2020. When nothing will appear in the chart title until you hit the enter key, and then you'll see that title appear in your chart. Now I'm going to move this chart to its own worksheet, just so we can concentrate just on the chart and not have this data in the way. So you'll see this button on the Chart Design tab called Move Chart. When I click it, I get a dialog box that opens, and I can choose where I want this chart to be placed. I'm going to have it in a new worksheet, and I'm going to call this worksheet my column chart. I click OK, and you'll notice a new worksheet tab appears in my workbook, and now I have this chart. Now let's see some of the things that we can do to this chart. Right now I'm on the Design tab. I can use one of these pre-formatted chart styles. You'll notice when I click that drop-down button, there's all of these different styles, and as I mouse over them, you see my chart change. I could choose one of these pre-formatted styles, okay? That's what chart styles is about. I can also go to the Format tab, and the Format tab allows me to change specific elements on the chart. So let's say I chose the blue bar here, and I wanted to change the color of that bar. I could go to Shape Fill, and I'm going to make it this yellow color. So the Chart Design tab allows you to kind of change big things about your chart, whereas the Format tab lets you refine your options on the chart. All right, let's go back to this worksheet. And the chart we created was kind of busy. There's a lot of information on there. Instead of charting everything on our chart, let's only chart the expenses, their names, and then only year 5 numbers. So it's good to know that you don't have to chart everything that's on your worksheet. You can pick specific items that you want to chart. How could I select 2 ranges of information? Would I use the Shift key or the Control key?
Control.
Control. So first I'll select A7 through A15. Then I'll hold down my Control key and do F7 through F15. So now I have 2 non-continuous ranges of cells. I'll go to my Insert tab. And this time, instead of picking one of these charts, I'm going to see what Excel recommends. So I hit the recommended charts, and you see it shows me some recommended charts. I'm going to pick this first one. And then I'm going to click OK. And you see the chart. I'm going to move it to the right. And I want to talk about some of the chart elements. So you may have noticed to the right of the chart, you have a little plus sign. That plus sign is how you add different chart elements to your chart. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the plus sign. And right now, the only things that are selected are your axes, your chart title, and your grid lines. I'm going to say to add data labels. So when I added data labels, you should see that numbers appeared above each one of those columns. I'm going to uncheck the grid lines. Okay, so you see how that got rid of the grid lines. Now, I think those numbers are a little difficult to read because there's no comma separator that's separating the thousands. So I'm going to go to my data labels, And there's a triangle that appears to the right of data labels. And I'm going to select more options. And down here, I'm going to format that number to be a number with 0 decimal places and to use the thousand separator. So I can change the look of those numbers, and now those are a little bit easier to read. All right, I'm going to pause, and I want you to think about charts and tell me something that you learned about charts. How about Quentin?
I learned that you can insert them in there.
Okay, you learned it. And where do you insert them? What tab allows you to insert them?
The insert tab, right?
Yep, the insert tab is correct. And there are many different types of chart. Some charts are better of displaying information, like if you want to show a trend versus a percent of total. So you can spend a lot of time playing with charts. But remember, this time when I went to the insert tab, I picked recommended charts to see what Excel recommended as far as the chart style that I wanted. How about Kayla? Could I change the color of these columns on my chart?
Yeah.
Okay, do you know how I would do that?
You would go to, I don't know exactly. No, I do not.
Okay.
But I know you can change them.
Yes, you definitely can. And I realize you guys aren't in front of the software yourself sometimes. So first you select those columns. You see how those elements are now selected on my chart. I would go to the Format tab. I would go to Shape Fill. I could make them a different color, or I could even put a picture in them. Let me see what kind of picture. Money. Let's see there. Okay. So you have a lot of flexibility about what your chart can look like. All right, that was a column chart. The next thing I'm going to show you is a pie chart. A pie chart is a circle chart, and it usually is used to show, like, of all the money you bring in, how much, when you divide up the pie, how big is each slice, okay? And you can do things to those slices. So I'm going to take this chart and just for right now, delete it. And I'm going to show you a pie chart. So this time I'm going to chart A7 through F7. Those are going to be the names of my slices. And then I'm going to chart A16 through F16. And I'm going to go to my Insert tab, and I'm going to do a pie chart. Let's do a 3D one, just to give some texture. And I'm going to move my chart so I can still see my data, and I can see my chart at the same time. Now, one thing I didn't mention before is this chart is directly tied to the data. In other words, if a number were to change over in the data, I'm going to make this number really big. Okay, do you see how it automatically, as soon as I hit enter, it updated my total, which updated my pie chart. And that is what the power of Excel is. Now, what kind of changes would you like to see on this chart? Does anyone have any suggestions?
Or, yeah.
Say that again, Jocelyn.
Well, I was thinking labels, but maybe not because I see the legend at the bottom.
Jocelyn, I love it. Yes, data labels. Okay. Because although we can see that this blue slice is the biggest, it's hard to tell the difference between these 4 slices. They all seem about the same size. So I can add a data element or chart element over on that plus sign, remember? So I'm going to hit plus, and I'm going to say I want data labels. Like, but don't love it. So let me go into that triangle. I'm going to go to more options. And instead of showing the value, I'm going to say show the percentage. Because in a pie chart, it's nice to know how big of a slice that is. So we can quite easily see that this 38% is the largest slice. Excellent. Good, Adrian, I'm glad you like it. You can see which kid is costing you the most money. I know who it is in my family. Also, with these data labels already selected, I'm going to increase my font size because I need bigger font, and I'm going to bold them just to be able to read them a little bit better. Any other changes that you would like to see on this chart? Do you like the chart title? Is it a no? Good, Roshanda. I would change the chart title to something more descriptive. Expenses for 2015 through 2020. Okay. How about this? I'm going to select the biggest slice, which is this 38%. I'm just selecting that one slice by double clicking on it, and I'm going to drag that slice out. That's called exploding the pie chart to kind of bring attention to the pie chart. Okay, I'm going to change my chart element. I can't remember, someone said this is called the legend, and that is correct. I'm going to change the legend so that it's at the right. And I'm going to select the legend, and I'm going to up the font size a little bit. So we looked at a pie chart. We improved the title. We added data labels, but the data labels weren't the numbers, they were the percentage of the total. And we changed the legend so it appeared at the right. And we also increased the font size of the legend. All right, so data labels can be customized, and who recalls where you customize those data labels? Olivia, do you know where you go to customize those data labels?
Is it in that little plus sign?
Yep, the plus sign that's over there. When you're selected on the chart, it appears on the right top corner. Excellent. All right, so we talked about pie charts as well. And we talked about exploding slices of the pie by double clicking on a slice and dragging it away from your pie chart. All right, the next topic we have are tables. Remember we had tables in Word. Who remembers what tables did in Word? They were also on the Insert tab. What did we use tables for when we were in Word? Maria Cruz, do you remember? Okay, we use tables for column types of data, lists that consist of columns and rows. In worksheet, you already have columns and rows, but by making a range of cells into a table, you can sort and filter in the table quite easily. You can also add a total row to your table. So let me show you how you do this. I'm going to flip back over to Excel. And I'm just going to copy the data from A7 to F15. Remember my shortcut key for copy, Control C. I'm going to go to sheet 2, and I'm going to use Control V to copy that data. Okay. Now this data right now is just a range of data. It is not a table. If I wanted to make this into a table, I would put my insertion point anywhere in this range of cells, and I would go to the Insert tab, and I would use this Table button. The Table button opens a dialog box. It shows us the cells. So it says, I'm going to make a table from the data that's in cells A1 through F9. And you kind of see a dotted line around that range of cells. And it says, my table has headers. The headers is this row 1. I click OK. And now my range of cells is a table. By making it a table, there's a couple of things that happened. Can someone tell me what they noticed that happened to my data? Did you notice the color changes? Okay, it changed. Yep, Jocelyn, the color change. You also should notice these little drop-down arrows appear. And you should notice that you got a new button called the Table Design button, which has all of these options on it. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change all of these columns so that they're formatted. I'm going to say auto fit column width so I can see all the columns. And then I'm going to take the numbers and I'm going to make them have comma separators and no decimal places. Remember, we talked about that last night, that you can control formatting in this number group. Once our data is in a table, we automatically get these drop-down arrows at the top of every column, and it makes it real easy to sort. Notice when I sort, I get a little icon. The down arrow would mean descending order. And if I changed it to ascending, it would be an up arrow. We looked at sorting yesterday, but in a table, you may also do sorting. You can also filter. So let's go to the expense column. And I don't want to show all the expenses. I only want to show advertising, legal, and remodeling. I can click OK, and it will filter out those rows that do not meet the criteria of my filter. So by putting a range of cells into a table, it makes it real easy to sort on different columns and filter. And remember, the little filter symbol indicates that that column has been filtered. If you want to take it off, you click there and you clear your filter. And now I'm back to my regular data. I'm going to go to the table design, and I want to show you a couple of other things. The first thing is you can apply a table style. So use the table styles group. I can click to open up all the different table styles, and I can pick a style that I like. Orange is my favorite color, so I'm picking orange. I can also, on this table design tab, add a total row. The total row automatically appears at the end of the table, and it is doing a total of this column. If you wanted it to do a total of other columns, all you would need to do is select in the column that you wanted the total to appear. You see a little drop-down arrow appear, and you can specify the type of total you want. Do you want it to do a sum or an average or a count? We talked about those last night, a maximum or a minimum. I'm going to have it do a sum, and I'm going to add that to every column of my table. Now, the nice thing about adding a total row is if you were to apply a filter, let's say we only wanted the first 3 expenses, the total row automatically adjusts to show the totals of only those rows that are displayed, not all of the data that's in there. So it's a flexible or collapsible total row instead of the one like that we looked at last night. All right, so who can tell me a good reason for converting a range of cells into a table?
You can manipulate data quickly or find something quickly if you have a lot of data.
Excellent, Jocelyn. Yes, it makes manipulating large data you can do quickly, okay? You can sort, you can filter, you can add this total row. Even once you're done manipulating and doing everything you want, you can convert it back to just a range of cells like we had started with.
Okay.
Olivia, what were you saying?
Oh, sorry.
Okay. All right, the next thing that I wanted to talk about was formatting, okay? So we talked about copy and paste. I want to talk about the paste options. Remember that when we copy and paste, it's doing the default copy and paste. But I want to talk about some paste options, and I want to show you how you can apply borders to your spreadsheets to make certain items stand out a little bit more. So the first thing I'm going to do is switch over to my spreadsheet. And I'm going to copy this information that is on sheet 2 using Control C. I'm going to open up sheet 3, and instead of doing a Control V to paste, I'm going to select the drop down underneath paste. And you see that I have all of these different options of how I paste that information. If I only want the numbers, not any of the formatting, not any of the functions or formulas, I can use this paste values, and only the data came, not any of the formatting or the functions. These are no longer totals. These are just simply numbers, okay? So you have different options of formatting. We could also change these numbers into the comma separators with 0 decimal places. The total row, we could make that the accounting style, which has the number sign. I'll use 0 decimal places. I could make this information bold and centered. I could even add a background color to that information up at the top, just trying to make things stand out. Under the payroll, I want to separate payroll from the total. I'm going to add a bottom border. That's what this button does. When I add a bottom border, I click that button. You don't see anything until I click off, and you see how it added that bottom border. I'm going to click this information, and instead of a bottom border, I'm going to say I want a double bottom border. Again, I'm just making things stand out on my worksheet. I can change column A. Right now, I can't read the full contents of column A. What is a shortcut to automatically change the width of this column? Does anyone know?
Double click it.
Double click and you go over to the side when you get that double-headed arrow. Double click, okay? And then it will automatically adjust. All right, let me just make sure I covered what I wanted to, yes. All right, the next topic are templates. We talked about templates in Word, and templates are, instead of in Word, they were pre-built documents. In Excel, there's pre-built worksheets. They already have the formulas and functions created in them, and you're just supplying your information. There's one that I use a lot called a loan amortization schedule. It is for any time you are buying a home or a car, you could use this. Let me show you. So you go to the File tab, just like you do in Word. You go to the New button, and right here it says Search for Templates. I'm going to search for loan amortization. This is the one I typically use. I'm going to hit Create. And it already has information in it, but let me show you how this works. Let's say you were going to buy a car for $15,000. So I'm going to type in the loan amount. What's annual interest rate? I have no idea what they're charging on cars, but I don't think it's 4%. I'm going to say 2.9%. How many years are you borrowing that money for? 5 years, let's say. I'm just making these up. Number of payments per year. We generally make monthly payments, 12 months in a year. And the start date of the loan, let's say it's September. Okay, and we're not going to make any optional payments. It tells us that we will be paying $268 a month for 60 months, and that we will be paying interest of over $1,000. So real quickly, when you are purchasing something big on credit, I just like to pull up this loan amortization schedule because I'm less concerned about the monthly payment as what is the total amount of interest that I am paying. Kayla, great. I'm glad you like this. You could even do this for your school loans if you have school loans. You can compare if I got a 2.9% interest versus a 1.9. Let's see what that would do to our payment. See, we're saving over $400 in interest by negotiating a smaller interest rate. You don't even have to know math. All you have to do is plug in your numbers to understand this amortization schedule. So I love to show people this, especially if you're making big purchases. So remember, I found those templates on the File New area, and look for, as you can see, there's a whole bunch of different categories of searches. There's also even little tutorials in here for you. Going beyond pie charts. That sounds interesting. All right, I'm going to close this up and not save it. So this template. The next, we talk about how every Office application marks its files. Does anyone remember the default file type for Word? What's the file extension?
PDF file?
DOCX, yes,
Yeah,
DOCX. In Excel, when we save a file, the default file extension is XLSX, okay? And you'll see the file gets marked with the icon of this green X. You can also save files in these other formats. CSV stands for comma separated values. TXT, just a regular text file, and PDF is a portable document file. So when you are in Excel and you want to save a file, I'm going to go to File, Save As, and I'm going to put this on my desktop. And I'm going to call this test file. Okay. Notice here it specifies it's going to save it as an XLS file. Unless you click this drop down, and then you have a bunch of other ways of saving the file. A CSV, a TXT, okay? So this is where you would specify those other file types. And there's even more here. Here's the PDF. So know that Excel marks its files as an XLS. Actually, I did want to say that. I kind of all right, so that file is now saved. And if I were to look at my desktop, here is the file. Notice it has the X to indicate that it is an Excel file. If you want to, with the file closed, you can right-click on this file and go to Properties. And when you're in Properties, this gives you kind of the behind the scenes or the metadata information about this file, where it's located, its size, when it was created, when the last time it was accessed, and you can mark it as read-only here. In Word, I showed you you can mark a file as read-only when you go to the File tab. If the file is closed, you can mark it using the right-click Properties button. And that would mark the file as read-only. So when I open it by double-clicking, it is, I don't know if you guys can see the top of my screen, but up here it says it's a read-only file. And in order for me to be able to save it, in order to edit it, I would need to save it again. All right, the last thing I wanted to talk about tonight was printing. Just like in Word, you can print. Print is located in the Backstage view, also called the File tab. And when I go to print, okay, over at the right, I see a picture of what's going to be printed. And you see at the bottom here, it is showing me that this is going to be printed on 2 pages because that pie chart is getting cut off kind of halfway through. One thing nice that Excel does is it offers some scaling options. So in Word, you play with the margins, you change the orientation of your paper. You can still do all of that in Word. You can change it to landscape, okay, just like you can in Word. But one thing that I like that Excel provides is this no scaling option. When you click it, you get fit sheet on 1 page. That means it will automatically fit that entire worksheet on 1 page. It simply shrinks the text up so that it is able to print on 1 page. It makes it real easy to be able to see large information on 1 page. Sometimes the text gets too small, so then I might change it to the landscape view. But know that printing is on the File tab and that you can change the orientation, you can change the margins, just like that you could in Word. But one thing Word did not have is the scaling option. All right. So let's look at some of these questions. What are data labels in charts? Who would like to answer that? How do we use data labels in charts? Lourdes, do you remember? Charts and graphs are the same thing, Tatiana. Lourdes, do you remember why we use data labels? Janae, do you remember why we use data labels? Oh, here, Lourdes, you came on. Okay, sorry.
No.
Okay, data labels, remember, are a chart element that we can
Okay.
add to a chart, and it puts a specific value above the column or next to the slice.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Maria Cruz, why do we use the control key to select data? Oh, I don't think she's on anymore. Who can answer that? Why do we use the control key versus the shift key to select data?
To get data that may not be next to each other.
Excellent, Jocelyn. Non-continuous ranges of data. I want column A and I want column F. I will have to use the control key to select those non-continuous ranges. All right. True or false, Olivia, can you change the format of the data labels?
True.
True. Excellent. You control that in the chart elements. Kayla, why would you create a table in Excel?
To organize, to figure out information and organize something so you can understand it or somebody may understand it in a deeper depth.
Yep, excellent. Okay. Manipulating data is easier in a table, and you will find the table command on what tab? Does anyone remember?
Insert.
Insert. Thank you, Quentin. Yep. All right. Adrian, name a file type that Excel can save as besides XLSX. So by default, it's going to put the XLSX file extension. What's another file extension it could save as? Adrian, are you still there? All right, does someone else want to take that one? Roshanda? Are we all checking out because it's 7:20? Oh, here, Roshanda, thank you.
What was the question? Name of file type?
that Excel can save as besides XLSX?
Common separated version or CSV.
Yes, CSV, or a PDF, or a TXT. Those are some of the common types. Okay, you guys, so tonight, what you'll want to do is you'll want to go to lesson 5 in geometrics, which is spreadsheets part 2. You're completing the video training and the exercise labs for spreadsheets. If you get time, try this cumulative exercise. I showed you this folder last night for Word. It looks similar in Excel. There's 2 files in this folder. The first one is simply the directions for you to follow. I think there's about 15 steps for you to complete, okay? And the second file is the file that you're going to be manipulating in Excel. So you will get to try things like changing the formats, adding some functions, etc. Okay, it looks kind of messy right now, but you're going to change it and add a table. You'll get a chance to do a chart, etc. And if you can't get through all of those items by tomorrow, no worries. You will have some time next week because we don't have any scheduled classes. And on Thursday, I'm going to be talking about the dates that we have set aside for you to try the first test for the IC3 exam. All right, I'm going to stop recording and